So I'm going to run you through a couple of practical applications that we work on in Cardiff Council. So in both of these examples that you can see on the screen, we include the mapping of the process end to end. But where they stand apart is the type of work that we've done with them. So firstly, we use Engage as a visual tool to exemplify problems through the graffiti process and easy up conversations with the stakeholders. So when you are on conversations with operational teams about process flows, it can get quite complicated. So using this visual tool allow us to represent the process on bite-sized chunks that are really easy for everybody involved to digest. On the second one, we utilize the analytical tools from Engage to help us compare processes pre and post automation and demonstrate how implementing a new technology can benefit the authority and its workforce. We're going to jump now to the graffiti one. So here, before thinking about digital transformation, we need to understand how the process works. To give you a bit of context, this process was run on an average of 20 times per month. And throughout the years, as it was an historical process, had multiple additions. So here on the screen, you can see the full process as it was. For simplicity, as there are loads of activity going on, parts of the process have been simplified into sub-processes, which are represented on those yellow rectangles on screen. Apart from the presentation purposes, this was utilized during the conversations with the stakeholders to allow us to focus on specific aspects of the process, as you can expand them out and pull them apart and target change. Our main goal throughout this project was to improve the inconsistency in reports coming in, so we can provide useful data and filter the cases to the appropriate team. Also reducing contacts to the contact center. So as this was our goal, we are going to focus on the first sub-process, which are the reporting channels. Here you can see the multiple customer channels. Customer had multiple options to make a report. The problem that we have with this historically is that all reports would go to one service area, and then as it wasn't on the remit of that service area, it would get pushed down to the contact center and then redirected to the appropriate team. So there was always a lot of back and forth between customers, agents in the contact center, and the service areas, which caused a slowdown on the process. Once we map it all out, we confirm our assumptions about the data that was coming in, which was mainly free text, which didn't allow for a proper filtering of cases. So sitting down with all the stakeholders, we managed to discuss what fields would be more meaningful in order to achieve this. A good example of where this failure was coming is on the social media branch, where agents have to process their requests and most of the times had to identify if there were enough information, go back to the customer for further questioning, and if they didn't reply, parts of these reports would just completely fall out of the process. As you can see, originally, the contact center had a 90% of usage from customers, and the web form, which was quite generic and using free text, only a 10%. So the next natural step is to work on the process, getting everybody engaged in the change that we wanted to achieve, allowing us to standardize the data capture during the entry point of the process. You can see now how both channels request the same information and the effect it had on the customer interactions. This is actual data from the service post transformation, and now 81% of our customers use the self-service channels through the app, web, and the chatbot. Here, a better look at the end stage. Engage allowed us to visually explain the changes to the service areas involved, which have been a very powerful drive for change. Influencing these entry points has allowed us to filter the cases to the appropriate service area, which now you can see ramifying into different branches, and help the collaborative approach throughout this process. So here we have used Engage as a visual aid, but Engage allows us to calculate how long steps take and their costs for the organization, which links nicely with our second example. So in Cardiff Council, we're exploring the application of robotic process automation in our administrative processes. So here is one of the examples that we used on the business case to get this put forward. Specifically, this is an invoicing process in one of our departments. After having these conversations with the stakeholders, we identify 5 different tasks that happen through the process that were suitable for automation, and also identified that due to a conflict of interest, an administrator could not carry on the workload from beginning to end, as they can only process the invoices, but they cannot authorize it. So the supervisor had to jump in, which increased the costs of this process. A very interesting thing that you can do with Engage is you can apply performance values to each of the steps, and also associate costs to each of the roles that are involved in this process. So after doing this, we ran an analysis which pinpoints conflicts throughout the process. So you can see those squares on top of each step, which is a traffic light system. The first square and the second represent time and cost, green being fastest and cheapest, and red being the slowest and most expensive. So this allows us to pinpoint the best approach of which issues we should target first. You can also see a lot of yellow throughout the process, but for the presentation, we're just going to focus on the red branches. One of the branches, the first one, represents hard copies going into the system, which require a scanning and a lot of legwork from the administrators. On the second one, once the invoice is going through the process, there may be some items that are missing information or more paperwork is required from a provider. So an administrator needs to communicate back to this and wait for the information to come back and then feed it back into the system. And then on the third one, we have the supervisor approving the outputs from SAP, which sometimes are not correct, and he needs to request changes to be made by the payments team. So now we can have a look at the to-be map of the robotic process automation for invoicing. Firstly, I'll run you through how we divided the process. So as we identify 5 different tasks, we identify 5 different automation flows and address the issues from the original process so the bots could work efficiently. So on the first branch, now is eliminated. Now only digital copies of invoices will go through the process, smoothing the flow. Hopefully, one of the good things from COVID is that most things are now digital, so this shouldn't be a problem. On the second one, as a virtual worker is processing the invoice, it will spot when information is missing and log it appropriately, ensuring that all the data is nicely summarized for an administrator to pick up the case and request any information needed to the provider. And also, as I mentioned before, the supervisor was involved and there was a conflict of interest, but now as a virtual worker is processing the invoices, this conflict of interest is gone, and now the administrators can take the role of the supervisor and approve or not those cases, reducing the costs of this process. The good thing is we applied the performance values based on the performance of a virtual worker into the process and run the analysis again. Now we can have a look at which sort of results you can get when you use the comparative analysis tools from Engage. So as I said, using the comparative tools, Engage allow us to compare each of the processes pre and post automation giving us results like the ones on screen. So if we focus on the left-hand side first, you can see the effects on activities. So you can see on the process pre-automation, we had quite a few computer steps undertaken by administrators on the supervisor, and these were reduced on a 77%. Manual steps have been completely removed, and automatic steps have increased in a huge amount. If we look on the right-hand side, we can see comparative measures on processing time and lead time. Overall, the processes would be 70% faster. The role of the supervisor is taken away from this task, which allows him to focus his time on more appropriate tasks, and the administrator's workload throughout the process is reduced on an 87%. Something that I have not input in here is the comparative on costs, but the results show that reductions of costs for each of the items going through the system would be reduced on a 75%. So the problem that we have sometimes is that it's difficult to illustrate how changes affect an overall process and its positive impact for the authority and the workforce. But with this type of tools that provide this clear data and examples is easier and has made the case for Cardiff to go forward with this type of new technology. And this will be the end of my presentation. So thank you very, very much for your time, guys.